Valve today are seen as a very reputable company. Not only did they make the PC gaming powerhouse Steam, they also have a nearly perfect catalogue of releases, with every single one of their games being critically acclaimed and getting their own die-hard community full of fans for each game respectively. And while Valve now are more of a hardware company than an actual video game studio, they've left the public with multiple 10 out of 10 games to waste their lives spending hours on, with the best one out of all of them being Left 4 Dead 2.
Kill all sons of bitches. That's my official instructions.
For the small percentage of people that don't know, granted I'm sure you do if you clicked on this video, Left 4 Dead is a single player co-op horde shooter where you go from A to B just trying to survive and eventually escape with your lives, all while fighting endless hordes of the infected. It's a very simple game. You aren't trying to save the galaxy, it's just you and your buddies going through a zombie apocalypse that's turned their whole lives upside down. Nothing more and nothing less. The game originally started development in 2005 by a company called Turtle Rock Studio and was released a short 3 years later. Left 4 Dead was widely acclaimed by many and instantly gained a cult following that adored the game and will continue to play it for hours to come. But then, out of the darkness came an unexpected surprise. During the now dead and buried E3, Valve would announce their newest game, Left 4 Dead 2, only a year later. Safe to say, the fans were divided. On one hand, some were excited to see the new direction Left 4 Dead was taking, new maps, new survivors, and new weapons, but obviously there was some that were not as excited, and very shortly after its reveal, there was a group dedicated to boycotting the game, citing that it would split the community and that it should be free or otherwise DLC for the first game. However, despite their efforts, it did little to slow down the sales of Left 4 Dead 2, with the pre-order sales being 4 times as bigger than the first. So Valve's reaction to this news was they turned around and said, "What, you don't like it when we create sequels to our games? Okay then." And then proceeded to never create a third installment for any of their IPs ever again. Despite the controversy, and yes, the game does have some, Left 4 Dead 2 released on the 17th November 2009, only 1 year after the first, to high praise from critics and fans alike. So now that you know a little bit about Left 4 Dead, what it's about and what it led up to, how does the game fare nowadays? Is it still the highly acclaimed masterpiece it was back then, or is it only kept afloat due to die-hard fans unwilling to let the past go and move on? Well, to find that out, grab your medkit, load up on your favourite weapon, and let's kill all sons of bitches.
That's my official instructions.
Left 4 Dead is a 4-player horde shooter where the goal is to work together and escape, and it's a game that really hasn't been topped since it was released. I think the only game that comes close to this kind of quality and enjoyment is DRL Galactic, another 4-player horde shooter with its own flair and uniqueness. It's a game that prioritises teamwork and cooperation over running on your own, since that's a great way to get killed, with the incentive to work together being that you actually progress through the game. Each campaign that Left 4 Dead 2 has opens up with a short cutscene with dialogue explaining the situation and the end goal you're going to be working towards.
Everybody grab a weapon. Then so am I. Grab a weapon, let's go. I think the goddamn building's on fire.
Valve made it a creative decision to show, not tell. The first campaign picks up where the opening cinematic left off, and then you're free to go and play with no bullshit. No pop-up tutorials, at least none that freeze the game interrupting it, no 5-minute long cutscenes with just multiple shots of the characters standing around going back and forth. It's just you 3 other buddies, AI or otherwise, and hordes upon hordes of zombies. The game shows you face first into the fire right from the get-go, with the place just outside your safe zone brimming with the infected. Scared, yet holding it together, you make your first of many kills. This is where Left 4 Dead drifts away from the traditional exposition into a more unique way on explaining what's happened. Sure, you could just keep moving forward, but if you actually go and explore, you can get some small info on the current predicament you're in with some dialogue, and even be rewarded with a better weapon.
Hey, look at this map. We need to get to New Orleans fast.
Left 4 Dead has a lot of dialogue, but it never really feels out of place. Every conversation,
Let's get to that bridge.
Every interaction and every reaction all flows naturally, and it never feels like the dialogue was just droning on and on endlessly. Every character has their own personality to bring to the table, and each of them all feels unique, and it makes you feel like you really are just some ragtag group that was forced together for all their continued survival, and it's entertaining. Some games I play, I find myself either muting dialogue or the game entirely due to the dialogue being boring and uninteresting, but I never really had that with Left 4 Dead, which just shows how well written these characters are. You have Coach, the undisputed leader of the group and the one that holds all the survivors together, especially when in bleak situations or at each other's throats.
Made it real damn far, people. I'm proud of you. Now let's just cross that last mile.
There's Ellis, a naive and childlike trucker who messes around yet still holds his own within the group.
You ready to meet that Zoe girl again?
Man, I don't know. What do you think? With the hat or without it?
Just be your own sweet self, Ellis.
There's Rochelle, a level-headed news reporter.
We're here. Crescent City. I'll tell you now. I'm not showing anyone my tits.
I'm sorry, Rochelle. What the hell are you talking about?
It's kind of it, really. She's not really that good of a character. And there's Nick, a shady gambler who has no issue with conflicting with the 3 other survivors and has a more cynical view on the whole situation, assuming they'll all just end up dying.
All right. We're gonna stroll across the bridge, and the army's gonna take care of us.
Or they're gonna line us up against a wall and shoot us.
Survivors comment on another's health, complain when shot, and even show remorse when losing a fellow survivor.
Boy, I'm gonna miss your goofy ass.
The survivors not only interact with each other, but also the world around them. It really makes it feel like you're part of the world and not the world as a whole. Survivors will comment about certain situations with their own thoughts and feelings, and it just adds a bit more to the game.
Holy shit!
The game, while still the same as Left 4 Dead 1 at its core, has built off that initial concept and for the better. Not only are there more weapons, there's more throwables, miscellaneous items such as the incendiary rounds and adrenaline, plus Left 4 Dead 2 introduced the most OP of weapon types ever, the melee weapons. Melee weapons are short-ranged and usually consist of a bunch of different items such as the pan or a bat, but can also be more useful items such as the fire axe or even a fucking katana. Now, granted, each melee weapon does the same amount of damage despite looking different, they all one-shot commons and most special infected, with the exceptions being the charger and the tank, and they cost no stamina to use, however at the cost of your pistols. The weapons in this game feel great to use. The sound of the AK firing on a horde of infected, the crunch of a baseball bat or the deep slash of the axe. Every weapon in this game has incredible sound design and feels amazing to use. The best part about Left 4 Dead 2 is that every weapon at your disposal is a weapon that can be used to fight the hordes. Sure, certain weapons are better than others and certain areas will be better off with certain weapons, but there are no wrong choices here. Not only does the game have more weapons and tools for the survivors to use, the game also has new infected that'll attack and kill you. Left 4 Dead 2 includes 3 new special infected, the Spitter, the Jockey and the Charger. The Spitter is a nasty looking infected that spits acid at the player, doing insane amounts of damage in a short amount of time, which makes them perfect when matched up with other infected attacks. The Jockey, the smallest infected that lunges at the player, grabbing onto their head and leading them away from their fellow survivors. This infected also has the title for the worst hitboxes known to man. And the Charger, a tanky infected that charges at the survivors, ploughing down any that stand in their way and won't stop until either hitting something, running far away enough, or being killed by the survivors. The game also carries over the infected from the first game, such as the Hunter, a hooded infected which pounces on the survivors, pinning them down and ripping them to shreds, doing insane amount of damage in such little time. Seriously, these things are insane on difficulties like Expert. There's the Smoker, a long-range infected which snares the survivors away from the group and beating them to death, but if they can't drag the survivor fully, will instead begin to choke them out until they die. The Boomer, a very weak infected when going toe-to-toe, but when used strategically can summon endless hordes of infected, blinding the survivors in the process, which of course can help other infected strike them when they're distracted. The Witch, a deadly infected which, although can be avoided, when startled will scream aloud and chase down the survivors who attacked her, instantly downing them and tearing them to shreds until they die or she does. And of course the Tank, the most powerful infected and a formidable opponent. The Tank is like the boss of Left 4 Dead. When the Tank is there, he charges at the survivors, shaking the ground and Falcon punching them into next week. Not only that, but the Tank can throw rocks and hit things like cars for an instant down and potentially a team wipe. The best way to deal with the tank is to set it on fire with a Molotov and run like hell, so it's always a good idea to keep at least one on the team, just in case. The one thing I really love about Left 4 Dead is that it's a game that tries to show the player the importance of audio and what it means. There's a lot of sounds in the game coming from both the survivors and the infected, and paying attention to certain audio cues can give you an advantage on the situation. Every special infected in the game has a distinct sound that plays when spawned, a apart from the hunter who stays silent, letting the survivors know that Spitter or a jockey could be just around the corner. It lets the survivors know about the infected without instantly giving away their position. The commons have a lot more depth to them compared to the first game. There's clown infected which honk when running, attracting other commons nearby. An infected dressed in a hazmat suit which is immune to fire damage, a common which crawls on all fours and splatters dirt all over your screen, and arguably the most annoying new common addition, the armoured commons, which can only be damaged from the back. In Left 4 Dead 2, there's a decent group of new common infected, but also there's new maps which most are excellent, and then there's like one or two that aren't as good as the others. The campaigns all feel original and flow greatly from each other, going from the streets of Dead Center in Savannah, Georgia, the fairgrounds of Dark Carnival, and all the way to the parish in New Orleans. You travel far during the campaigns of Left 4 Dead, and you struggle just as much getting there, so seeing that bridge just on the horizon could be cathartic knowing that you're so close to beating the game. Each campaign has the survivors develop as characters, even if only slightly, and you learn a little bit about their history on the very first mission of the first campaign.
I run an auto shop around here. Instead of evacuating, I armored up a truck to drive myself out of here. Built that thing to be zombie-proof. Well, it turns out it was only 99% zombie-proof. Last 1% tore that truck to shit.
If we're all getting to know each other, my name's Rochelle. I work in television. Worked in television.
Oh, you don't say, wrestling and such?
No. Hard news. I've been producing segments on CETA evacuating people.
Huh. If everybody's evacuating, who's watching the news?
I guess my boss never thought of that.
Figures. Bosses are shitheads.
And you? Nick. That's all you need to know. I'm gonna get out of this piece of shit city if it kills me. But don't worry about learning it, because I ain't sticking around long.
Each one of the campaigns are all connected together to tell a short story of the survivors going cross-country to get rescued by the military. The survivors start off in Savannah, Georgia on the rooftop of a hotel, avoiding fire, killing infected. They make their way down to street level, arm up on guns, do a supply run and make it to the mall, only to realise the mall didn't stand a chance and it's just as infested with the infected as everywhere else. Fighting their way through the mall, the group soon finds out that no evac is there for them and they have to get out there themselves. Each chapter of each campaign sets out the survivors' sub-objectives, which in turn progress their main objective of just getting the hell out of there. And it's very fun. Sure, the game could technically be called an extraction game, but that's not a bad thing if not just underselling the game in a certain way. Each campaign introduces new hardships the survivors must overcome to survive, whether it's the flood from hard rain which slows down your movement, or the Ferris wheel in Dark Carnival which will summon an endless horde of infected unless turned off. Every campaign throws a wrench into things to mix up the gameplay and challenge the survivors. 5 campaigns may not sound like a lot, and you'd be right, but that's why Valve ported over all the Left 4 Dead 1 maps to Left 4 Dead 2, made multiple, just one DLC campaign, called The Passing, which introduced a short yet fun campaign where the Left 4 Dead 2 survivors interact with the Left 4 Dead 1 survivors.
You hate stuff too?
Sure. Never really thought about it, but yeah, I hate things. I hate those stairs.
I know.
I hate that bridge.
It's so stupid.
I hate your vest.
What now? I don't think this is gonna work out.
With the release of The Passing, introduced the new game mode Mutation, which is basically like an arcade mode, a bunch of different modes which all shake up the rules and gameplay, making for even more replay value. There was a time where Valve let a map designer create a whole new campaign that was officially added to Left 4 Dead 2, however they made it without the intent to further the game's story, leading to a mediocre experience. Now, it may not seem like it at face value, but both Left 4 Dead games have a story to tell, and they tell it in a unique way I've not seen many other games replicate. Instead of long cutscenes or boring collectibles yapping away the lore instead of letting you actually see what's happening, the game uses environment and dialogue to tell the story of the 4 survivors. You'll notice a lot of graffiti, all with different messages, some even being references to other zombie media, piles of corpses giving the player a lingering sense of doom, and government flyers giving instructions on what to do to better their chance of survival. While you don't get to see the downfall of society, you do get to see the aftermath, and it's done pretty well. I don't think a game like Left 4 Dead would work as well as a linear FPS with cutscenes, as it would disrupt the flow of the game, which is the whole appeal in the first place. The story isn't deep or thought-provoking, and it definitely isn't a 10 out of 10, but it's there and it's entertaining enough to warrant keeping your eyes peeled to learn just that little bit more. Even certain maps can have unique rare special common infected which let you know the fate of certain outside characters like Jimmy Gibbs Jr. and Dead Center. Each campaign is also different in small ways. Paths you could go to on a previous playthrough might be blocked on the next. The AI, titled The Director, always makes every subsequent playthrough of Left 4 Dead unique in its own right. If the Director senses the survivors are kicking ass, it'll press the throttle a little, making supplies more scarce. And maybe even include a tank or a witch to throw a wrench into things, so it's not uncommon to get screwed over by just being unlucky. But if the survivors are struggling, the director will back off a little, maybe even spawn in some helpful items like pills or a pipe bomb. While the campaigns remain relatively the same, the AI and how it interacts with the player always keeps things fresh and new, even with the playtime I have on in the game. The game also has different difficulties to really test the skill and even look out of the players it's facing. Easy and normal aren't too different, the infected do relatively the same amount of damage, and special infected like tanks are very forgiving. But go on to the more harder difficulties like advanced and expert, the infected do more damage, friendly fire can lead to instantly downing and potentially fucking over your whole team, and specials like tanks and witches are deadly, with the latter even instantly killing you if startled, so even if you get bored or think it's too easy, you can always increase the difficulty to make it harder. The campaign, while amazing in its own right, will eventually get repetitive and boring, as all things do. That's why the game has multiple modes to choose from. Do you love fighting the intense zombie hordes? Well, head on over to Survival, a game mode where your sole objective is to just survive as long as you possibly can, all while fighting an ever increasingly difficult endless horde of zombies set out to kill you. Survival will give the players a small snippet of existing campaigns to play around with. You're given weapons, supplies, and are basically just left to fuck around whoever you please, with being rewarded higher ranks for the longer you survive for. Maybe not the mode you'll be spending hours upon hours on, but it's a decent way to kill some time and test if you truly are as good as you say you are. Although I will say certain maps are better than others, with my personal favourite being Chapter 4 of Dead Center, but I also have a soft spot for the motel in Dark Carnival. Whenever I play that map, I just get reminded of the times I spent on the 360 glitching out of bounds with a grenade launcher and just dicking around in areas we weren't supposed to be at. This Scavenge, although no one really plays it, it's a game mode where the survivors have to fill a generator with a certain number of gas cans before time runs out or they're killed, and the opposite team, the infected, who have to kill them before they get a higher score than they do. Survival Versus is the same game mode as Survival, where the players have to survive for as long as possible, except this time the twist is that the infected are controlled by players, and both teams fight to dominate the timer and see who can last the longest. It's also a game mode that very rarely gets played. And then there's Realism. Realism is taking the campaign and removing certain aspects of it to make it harder. There's no survivor or item outlines, witches instantly kill the survivors no matter what difficulty except for easy, and dead teammates don't respawn until the next chapter, making defibs vital. And commons take more hits, making headshots a must, especially on expert. And then there's Versus, the powerhouse of the game, and the mode that's played by most, if not almost everyone. In Versus mode, you can play as either one of the 8 survivors or one of the 7 infected, and the two teams battle it out through the multitude of different campaigns to get as much score as possible, all while the infected try and do as much damage as possible to stop them from making as much progress, or stopping them altogether, before the roles are swapped and you repeat until the campaign ends. This is the mode you could possibly spend the most amount of time on, getting matched with different players from all over the world with different skill levels, bringing their own inputs to the table. You have every campaign at your disposal. But most only ever really play like 3 campaigns and that's it, which sucks, and if you very rarely see anything else, and if you do, on PC at least, there's a good chance it's a shitty modded server with terrible ping. But that begs the question, which one should you pick? For value's sake, I'd say wholeheartedly that Left 4 Dead 2 is the better experience. Left 4 Dead 1 isn't bad by any means, but compared to Left 4 Dead 2 has less content, a smaller player base, and for the same price, Left 4 Dead 2 is the way to go. The bittersweet aspect of Left 4 Dead 2 is that it made Left 4 Dead 1 obsolete. There's no reason to get it since everything in that game is already in Left 4 Dead 2 and with more to offer. Left 4 Dead 2 isn't a perfect game. It has its issues and the community can be very hit or miss, but the solid gameplay, endless replay value, and extensive interactions you can have with the player base makes Left 4 Dead 2 worthy of being called the best Horde shooter. And if you really haven't played it yet, you owe it to yourself to pick this game up and experience it for yourself. There's so much content in this nice, tightly wrapped package for you to spend potentially thousands of hours on, and that's what makes Left 4 Dead 2 an almost perfect game.